We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Tig Eric! Here's an episode I've been waiting to do for quite some time. I am Eric.
I am Tig.
This is the Nerd Out With Me 90s cast, where we do 120 episodes through the 1990s, starting in January 1990, ending in
December 1999.
That's right. So every week we advance a month through this 1990s journey, talking about all sorts of crap.
Like movies and TV shows and video games and shoes and glasses and all the things that you need to get through life.
Oh, that is beautiful. You can find us at NERDOUTWITHME.com as well as on social media, all the different places, right?
Yep, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Google+, YouTube. We have the YouTubes.
Oh, that is right. We're on the YouTube channel where we do video content and so on. And you can also find us at patreon.com/nerdoutwithme. So if you like this show, go there.
That's where all the fun happens, to be honest.
Pitch us a buck or two a month, and we have bonus episodes each and every week that accompany these episodes with all sorts of other content. So that's cool, and that's fun, and so on, and so forth. Yeah.
Eric's very excited about this episode.
Yeah, this week, this episode is an all-music episode. 1991 is a pretty killer year for music, and September 1991 is an obnoxiously amazing month for new music releases. We could probably do 3 episodes just on this month alone. So in this week's episode, we're going to be talking about specifically 3 album releases, or technically 4 album releases. And then our bonus episode is going to be even more music, because there's just so much. It's
crazy that these all came out at the same time.
Yeah, Bootsy had mentioned it. He was on with us the last 3 weeks in a row, or 4 weeks in a row. No, I'm sorry.
Counting the Halloween special.
A few weeks back, he was on with us for 3 weeks in a row, and he had mentioned he thought 1991 was probably one of, if not the greatest years for music, and he certainly in modern times, he's probably not wrong. He's not far off at the very least, and September is especially amazing. In this episode, we're going to talk about the Guns N' Roses dual albums, Use Your Illusion 1 and 2, Pearl Jam's 10, and Nirvana's Nevermind, which all came out in September of 1991. And then, because we just don't have room for it all, in our bonus episode, check this out, Tig. Red Hot Chili Peppers' Blood Sugar Sex Magic, Metallica's self-titled record Metallica, Slow Dives Just for a Day, DJ Jazzy Jeff and the French Prince's Home Base, PM Dawn's Of the Heart and the Soul and of the Cross, Cypress Hill's debut record, Cypress Hill, Blur's Leisure, Naughty by Nature's self-titled record, Naughty by Nature, The Spin Doctors' Pocket Full of Kryptonite, The Pixies' Trompe de l'Amande, Tribe's Called Quest's The Low End Theory, Swerve Driver's Raise, all in 1 month. And the incredible thing is, like, in our upcoming episodes, next episode, Soundgarden's Bad Motorfinger, Public Enemy's The Enemy Strikes Black,
the floodgates
Matthew Sweet's Girlfriend. After that, we've got
album.
Teenage Fan Club's Bandwagon-esque, My Bloody Valentine's Loveless, U2's Octung Baby. The music is pretty damn insane.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
So let's not pause anymore. Let's get right into it. We'll be back. There we go. On August 27, 1991, Pearl Jam's 10 was released. I don't think the story of this album needs to be fully reiterated, but we can go through it a little bit. Pearl Jam was formed by Jeff Ament and Stone Gossard after the breakup of Mother Love Bone, who were an up-and-coming sort of glam rock band out of Seattle. They seemed to be on the cusp of greatness, and then their lead singer died of a heroin overdose, and that was it. Jeff Ament and Stone Gossard had been in the Seattle scene for quite some time. They were in a band called Green River, who was really awesome. They did sort of a proto-grunge. When they broke up, the other half of that band ended up becoming Mudhoney, who were also terrific.
Great band.
Somehow, this post-Mother Love Bone demo tape ended up in the hands of this surfer guy called Eddie Vedder, who was in a band called Bad Radio out of San Diego. Eddie recorded lyrics over the demo, had it sent back up. They were like, bring this guy up here. He came up. They liked him, and they recorded the record. While he was up, of course, their mutual friend, Chris Cornell, happened to be writing some material, and they brought Eddie in to sing on one of the songs, and Temple of the Dog happened.
I'm going hungry.
I'm going hungry. So you should have done the high part. I can't do the high parts. And of course, Temple of the Dog didn't actually even become big until after Pearl Jam became big. It would just sort of came. Temple of the Dog was released fairly early. So anyway,
was it on the single soundtrack?
No,
it wasn't.
No.
How the hell did we hear Temple of the Dog? I'm going hungry.
Well, because eventually they push it as they push it as a single. No, Cornell had a solo track on there.
I feel like for some reason I thought that was on like the singles soundtrack or something.
No, they didn't. All three of them, Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, and Chris Cornell as a solo artist, all had had stuff on there.
Right. Yeah, that was a great soundtrack actually.
Yeah. But no, the Temple of the Dog record came out in April of '91.
Okay.
So the Temple of the Dog record, actually, we could have talked about this in an earlier episode. The Temple of the Dog record came out before Pearl Jam.
Right.
With Eddie Vedder on there. Because that's, they were still doing their thing. So August, this record comes out right around the time of some other big records. It wasn't an immediate success, if you remember. It didn't come out of the gate and like get big.
No.
It wasn't actually big until 1992. It took about a year. Same thing with Nirvana's Nevermind, which we'll talk about in the next segment. It took a while for it to click. But by the time 92 was over, it was absolutely enormous. And now, I think it's pretty safe to say that this is probably one of the biggest and most important records of our generation. If not, record critics tend to point to Nevermind, but I kind of feel like, among the people that I know, this is the one.
This was, with me, the album that I sat in my room and listened to every single song on.
Oh, yeah.
Where Nevermind, I did, but for some reason not like I did with 10.
Right.
And I wanted to know everything about it.
Yeah.
Like the fact that 10 is the number of Mookie Blaylock.
Yeah.
Like things like that I know about the Pearl Jam album. Why it's Pearl Jam. Why are they called Pearl Jam?
Mookie Blaylock, incidentally, for people who don't know, was a basketball player in the Seattle Sonics.
Right. Like wanting to learn all that stuff and know everything about them. This was definitely over Nevermind, like a weird, and I don't know why. Just had a different feel than Nevermind.
Well, I think one of the things that helped make this connect for a lot of people, certainly a lot of the people that I know, was that it brought a lot of the aesthetic of a lot of the emotional aesthetic and thematic aesthetic of sort of what Nirvana was doing and some of these other bands, in so much as they were talking about things that we could relate to and emotional experiences and that kind of thing, but under a backdrop of music that was actually very familiar. If you really listen to the music, it wouldn't be out of place on a 70s classic rock record or on a hard rock record. These riffs were hard rock riffs. These riffs were actually, fittingly enough, given what we just talked about, a lot of these riffs would not be out of place on a Guns N' Roses record. The riffs, mind you. Again, the overall presentation maybe not, but you think about, let's say the riff from Even Flow, one of their most favorite, famous riffs. If it wasn't Eddie crooning over that record, if instead it was like some hard rocker snarling over it, you wouldn't think twice about like, oh yeah, that's a snarling hard rock song, or Why Go, when you boom 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 boom,
right.
It's they were merging hard rock with this new kind of thing, which I think was part of what made them real special.
They did. It's weird to think, to try, like thinking back, to go back into the time when because they kind of like for me at least, Nirvana and Pearl Jam both kind of hit at the same time, but they did have that different feel, and there were people, everybody was on board with both, but there were Nirvana fans and Pearl Jam fans because they both had that different emotional hit to them both differently.
Yeah.
Like Nirvana kind of had more of a like an angry feel to them, even though Pearl Jam did have an angry feel, it was more of a melancholy feel. Does that make any sense?
No, yeah, it makes total sense. I think well, because Nirvana was coming from more of a punk aesthetic.
Right, yeah, I guess that's what it was.
Whereas
like you said, where Pearl Jam is more of a rock, came from a more like a rock aesthetic. Nirvana was coming from more of a punk, a little bit harder hitting. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think Nirvana felt more rebellious.
Right.
When compared
to... Pearl Jam, you could... Like I said, Pearl Jam kind of had that feel of like sitting in your room alone.
Well, let's put it this way. Pearl Jam gets played on classic rock radio now.
Yeah.
Whereas Nirvana does not.
Right. But Pearl Jam, too, especially the 10 album, had a lot of, you know, there's a lot of songs off that album that never get played that are great. You know, I know they started playing Black. I remember people being pissed when they started playing Black because Black never had an MTV video.
Right.
So Black was like this weird personal thing for people that were in the Pearl Jam when it came out. Remember that?
Oh yeah.
Like Black was like very personal for people. And then it came out. It never had a music video, which at the time music videos were huge. It was a big deal. It didn't have that, but it came out on radio.
Right, yeah, because radio started playing the deep cuts.
Right, and so Black was like this weird, like, you almost kind of got pissed that it came out on radio.
Right,
because it was like, oh, this is ours. What are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. Sort of like when a B-side from this record, which is now one of their most popular songs, Yellow Ledbetter, became like this big radio song, and it's like, no, that's ours. You can't be doing that.
Which again, I think we've talked in the past about how like this was the first time for us because of our age where like music became personal.
Sure. Well, yeah. Well, and not only not only just because of sort of when it came out, but because we were. I think for a whole generation, this record came out during a time when, you know, you hear a record like this when you're a teenager, when you're in that emotional boil of being a teenager or in your early 20s, and you're in that, you know, like...
You're emotionally going through things that you don't ever go through when you're older or even when you're younger. You
know, you're trying to figure life out and just all that, you know, all that shit. And then here's a record that's confronting all that sort of stuff.
Right.
Head on, but also in a vague enough way that you can apply a lot of it to yourself. I think that's sort of some of the brilliance of this era, the so-called grunge era, and we'll talk about it a little more when we talk about Nevermind, is that lyrically, it wasn't always entirely clear what they were talking about. Therefore, you could sort of self-apply it.
Yeah, that was a big thing, was because it was... I agree with that 100%. You applied it to whatever you were feeling at the time to yourself personally.
Right.
Because they were vague enough to let you... Whether they did it on purpose or not, I don't know.
Well, a great... I think here, and this is a great story that sort of illustrates that. And it's a story that Eddie Vedder tells. And it's about the song Alive. And he said the song doesn't mean what it used to mean. And it doesn't mean for him what it used to mean. Specifically because of the fans. And it's because... the fans wrongly took it as an affirmation. The refrain "I'm still alive." Fans took it. I certainly was among them. I remember at one point going through a thing that I went to during this time, shortly after the record came out, and sitting in my living room with the stereo to ungodly, like, call the police levels, and listening to "I'm Still Alive," and just sort of, you know, like Apocalypse Now, throwing my arms back and just, you know, I'm still alive. And it was like an affirmation, this idea that, you know what, no matter what, all this bullshit, I'm still alive.
Yeah, you're surviving through the emotional turmoil that everyone goes through at that age.
Yeah, and that's not what Eddie wrote.
Was it about like a girl?
Well, no. But for him, the idea, the refrain, "I'm still alive," is supposed to be like, "Oh, son of a bitch, and I'm still alive." Like it was supposed to be a bad thing. Like through all this crap, and yet I'm still alive. Like this sucks. It's not supposed to be good. It's supposed to be bad.
Huh.
It's supposed to be like the cherry on top of badness. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so for him, when fans were taking it as an affirmation, at first he was kind of like, "This is all wrong."
You missed the point.
Yeah, yeah. It's sort of like the people who take "Born in the USA" as a
as like, "Oh, I'm bored," and
Right.
and it's Vietnam, and
but because of the way Eddie wrote the song, you could successfully sort of reinterpret it. And he says in the ensuing years he has reinterpreted his own song.
Huh.
Which
That's
is
kind of funny.
It's a great. I think it's a great story. It's a true. It's a story that he tells about how fan interpretation can kind of change.
Has changed the mind of the artist who created the song.
Yeah, I think it was great.
Did you ever get to see them live?
Yeah, absolutely.
Where did you see them?
So I'm at the Spectrum in Philly. Also took them. My son's very first concert was Pearl Jam. Took him to see Pearl Jam for his very first concert.
Did you see him for the like when they came out with this, or was it like later on?
No, I didn't see them during this time. I saw Nirvana during this time.
Okay.
But no, I did not see Pearl Jam this early.
I missed Nirvana during this time, but I got to see Pearl Jam at Lollapalooza for their 10 album.
Yeah, relatively early. They were.
So it was 92 with Chili Peppers.
Right.
Blah blah blah. Which was pretty amazing. Like to think back now, I have vague memories of it because obviously I was in a state of mind of everyone else that probably was at the concert.
Right. Well, yeah.
But it was amazing to see them perform the songs off 10 live. And I remember he sang Crazy Mary. I always remember that.
Yeah.
Wild-Eyed Crazy Mary.
Yeah. Wild-Eyed
Crazy Mary.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great cover tune, of course.
Yeah.
From a tribute album that came out at the time. This was a band who I had already been somewhat into, like chasing down the obscure tracks from album artists that I like and stuff like that. But with Pearl Jam, it kind of kicked in overdrive with me, where I was buying $20, which at the time was
like
expensive.
Footsteps. Did you have like Footsteps and stuff?
Yeah, definitely. Like and even when I purged my record collection a couple of years ago, I still have all this stuff that I'm about to talk about. But I was like chasing down like $20 import singles and stuff like that. I was spending a lot of money on bootleg CDs and records.
And don't you feel like that you were that way? That's the thing with Pearl Jam. Well, it was weird because we were all in Nirvana and Pearl Jam and all. But for Pearl Jam, there was like all these that was a huge thing. Pearl Jam and bootleg albums.
Well, yeah, because they were such a tremendous live band.
These live songs that you never would get, and then a friend of yours, or like I know you would be able to get your hands on them at the time. These like bootleg live versions that no one could get their hands on.
They would literally jam a lot. I remember one. I think it was the Zurich show. I'm pretty sure it's the Zurich show, and ardent Pearl Jam fans will know exactly what I'm talking about because it's one of the better bootlegs out there, where they do the so-called Mama-san trilogy, which is from the first record. There are 3 songs that are supposed to go together in a certain order to form a story.
Okay.
And it's Alive. Or no, I'm sorry. It's I think it's Alive, and then Once, and then Footsteps, the B-side at the end. And it's supposed to be the story of him as a child being abused. That's Alive, and then Once, because Once is about him being a killer, him snapping and killing people.
I can control myself. Yeah.
And then Footsteps is him in jail. And they actually performed them 1, 2, 3 with little instrumental bits and improvised bits in between of him singing stuff in between. And it was like this really. Plus, they did I think that was the same show that they did a song that bootleggers often call "Meaningless," where they just jam for a while and he riffs on a bunch of stuff and he does a song from what's her name? I'm special. so special.
Really?
I wanna have some of your attention.
Give it to me.
Pat Benatar, is that Pat Benatar?
No, isn't that the Pretenders or something?
Pretenders, that's right. Yeah.
And then he also did take a bottle, drink it down, pass it around.
Oh, that's Crazy Mary.
Crazy Mary. Wow,
yeah,
that's part of Crazy Mary. I forgot. It all blends together at some point. Yeah, they were like the bootleg band. That's what I think they were probably the first time I actually. It was like hunting down. Like friends would be like, "Oh, did you hear this new song?" You know, like give you a tape, and you'd find some bootleg song that no one's ever heard of from them.
Yeah.
They were the first band I think that got me into like what? There's like these other songs that they sang or covered.
Yeah.
It was a big fucking deal.
Yeah, they were huge to me as far as like changing the way I saw and listened to and consumed music. Another band that was that way, we'll talk about in a moment. Come back in a minute. We're going to talk about Nirvana's Nevermind, because that's kind of a little bit of a big deal too. We'll be back. I'm special.
So special. I want to have some of your attention. Give it to me.
Oh boy. All right, so we just got off 2, actually 3 really big records, and yet wait, no, there is another. That's good, right?
Yeah, we're good.
September 24th, 1991, a record with a dick on the cover came out.
Yeah.
Nirvana's Nevermind came out September 24th, 1991. This was produced by Butch Vig, who at the time was not a big name, but would eventually become a big name because he ended up producing records like Smashing Pumpkins' Siamese Dream. He formed his own band, Garbage, which became huge. And of course, this album got pretty damn big too, largely on the strength of one single, Smells Like Teen Spirit. Should I grab the guitar?
Can you play it?
Yeah. I mean, it's super easy to play, but it got big on a single that I think even like the band members were kind of like. Kurt wasn't big on the song.
Well, Kurt wasn't big on anything.
That is true. That is very true. So, all right,
at least he acted like he wasn't.
Before I get into the whole critical bit and all that, and what critics say and all that, I want to ask you: do you remember where you were the first time you heard Nirvana?
Yes.
Good.
I vividly remember. That's weird because we were just talking about in the last one, like Pearl Jam being huge.
Right. And I remember the first time where I was when I first heard that.
I don't remember the first time I heard Pearl Jam.
I do.
But I do vividly remember the first time I heard Smells Like Teen Spirit. My friend Greg honked the horn, pulled up in front of my house. We were going to go play hockey. And I ran out the front door. I ran out the front door, jumped in his car, and he literally had a tape in his hand, turned around, looked at me in the back seat and said, "You need to hear this." I swear to God, like out of a fucking movie. You need to hear this.
That's what...
Put it in the tape deck, and it literally was just... And I'm like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, that's what this shit was like at that time. I when all this stuff was happening, there was a lot of moments like that where it was like, what the... And certainly Nirvana was absolutely among them. I remember that same sort of thing, and it was a very similar scenario where you know, someone's like, you gotta hear this.
Yeah.
And
that you gotta hear this moment.
Yeah, big time.
Which is weird because I guess we were hearing it late being on the East Coast. It literally was coming across the country. Yeah.
Well, because, you know...
And both of us heard it before the MTV video came out.
Sure, yeah. Well, I mean, because Nirvana was a little band touring and they had been touring their way across this area multiple times before. They played here multiple times. Remember City Gardens in Trenton?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they played City Gardens multiple times before this record came out.
But it's weird to think now that a lot of people, even listening to this, heard them for the first time on MTV. for that video.
But that's totally understandable.
Yeah, because you can only... But we, for whatever reason, heard it probably like in some bootleg or whatever version of it.
Yeah. I mean, how it came into the hands of the people who introduced you or something. Who knows? But this was one of these records that sort of spread like wildfire, right?
Yeah.
It was like it was one of these records. Once you heard it, you had to make somebody else hear it.
Right. Yeah. Everybody was just running around going, "You got to hear this. You want to be the first one to let them hear it from you."
Yeah. It was like super exciting because it.
For the age of the internet and stuff.
And it was super exciting at the time, but it's also one of the reasons why the record, to me, doesn't hold up, is because the record sonically, it sounded like the hard rock we listened to at the time.
Right.
Butch Vig's production gives it this sort of sheen, this glossy sonic sheen that for the day sounded amazing. But in retrospect, I actually don't like it. I now listen to a different mix called the Devonshire mix that they released a couple of years ago. That sounds a little more natural and so on. But at the time, so again, you got this record that sort of sonically sounded like the stuff that was happening at the time, and yet the songs and the themes and the music and everything were like way different. It was like it had this punk aesthetic, and yet there were like Beatlesque melodies, but there was a guy shrieking as if he could have been a hard rocker, and then he's singing about absolute nonsense.
Yeah, nonsense.
It's and even he would admit that it's nonsense. He actually in the lyrics of the album, he talks about writing the lyrics for the record, how it's just crap.
"Smells Like Teen Spirit" was the thing that was spray painted on his wall by his.
Yeah, just some...
Teen Spirit was deodorant.
Right, yeah.
And how, like, the girl he was rooming with who liked him at the time said, like, Kurt smells like Teen Spirit or whatever, and he took the lyric. Yeah, it's all nonsense. And
I'm trying to remember
there's no deepness to that.
The lyric where he talks about the lyrics, and I think it's Loungejack. Let's start this off without any words, and he goes on, he talks a little bit about the idea of just, and of course he talks about
it's like stream of consciousness.
I got so high I scratched till I bled, Yeah. That was like what last segment, alright, I brought it up slightly. And this is to me one of the reasons why Nirvana stuff holds up so well, is Cobain was always very vague, very amorphous with his lyrics. I think we were talking about this with Bootsy recently, right? With R.E.M.?
Yeah.
Michael Stipe used to be this way too in the early to mid 80s. Lyrically, even if he had something in mind, it wasn't crystal clear.
Yeah, he always purposely kept it vague.
Yeah. And Tom York in Radiohead does that as well often. And that is really effective.
Yes.
Because it means you can...
lets everybody project what they want. It lets you make the song personal to you.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's some stuff that's pretty obvious, like In Bloom is, from this record, is pretty obvious what it is. Like, I don't know, like just to pick a song. We'll go with Smells Like Teen Spirit. Like, what is it to you? Just in general terms.
Well, if I look back to the time, it was rage.
Yeah.
It was angst.
Right.
It was sort of like, I think I've said this before, it was the first time that I felt like I owned the music. The music was for me.
Right.
That's what it is. That's why I probably don't go back and listen to it very often, because I'm an old fart. And when I go back and listen, it's like, oh, I remember that like riling up something in me that other music never riled up in me.
Right. Yes,
it wasn't the music that your parents listened to.
That true, though oddly for me it was
well, yeah.
Because I grew up in a weird household, but yeah, I mean that's in fact, just as a brief segue, remember I got the single for, I believe it was Teen Spirit, and on the flip side was one of their B-sides, Even in His Youth, which is a really good song, and I would crank that sometimes because, after I got done listening to the record, I was like, well, I want more.
Yeah.
And I remember my old man hitting the bedroom door and what? Because, what do you want? What was that one? even in his youth, I know. Or no, I think I would just say like, oh, it's Nirvana. He's like, I know what it is, but where's that one from? Oh, it's from the Teen Spirit single, because my dad was big into that.
I was gonna say, I know your dad had a massive album collection. He knew what he was listening to.
Somewhere up here, because I don't think I got rid of that. No, I'm sorry, I did. He had a Nirvana bootleg collection that numbered probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 to 400 shows.
Jesus.
Yeah.
So he knew what he was listening to.
Oh yeah. He was very big.
Did that change for you? It being personal for you?
No.
Okay.
No.
You know what I mean?
In part because
like Metallica and Guns N' Roses was personal, but for some reason, Nirvana and Pearl Jam were more personal for me than.
And they were for me as well, though you have to remember, I, like, pretty much just shortly after these records came out and hit big, I had left home. And,
right.
And there was some...
so then it became more personal for you.
Yeah.
Even more.
Yeah. When, at the time when... Actually, now that I think about it, now I get into the story, it pinpoints a little more. Now I can figure out a little more when I got into them, because I know when I left, and I know when this record came out, and I know when that single came out. So I can figure out kind of when...
Yeah, where you are.
Right. And even when he got into them as well. But no, because I had left home probably... I guess... it was almost immediately after graduation from high school. And so this record was, 6 months before that? 7 months before that? So, yeah.
Yeah, this was the music you were like... You were on your own with.
And I remember then a couple of years later coming back home... specifically to watch the Unplugged with him.
Oh, yeah.
Because we knew it was coming on, we had talked about it.
Which was huge.
Yeah.
I just recently watched, they have on YouTube a lot of, they play, like, the cuts in between, like, the stuff that didn't get aired.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Which is pretty cool. Like, them trying to figure out what they're going to play, what they want to play, what they're going to cover, Screaming Trees, and stuff like that.
That's it. I was such a nerd about this stuff that back in the day, I might even still have it, had a VHS of
the original.
The pre-broadcast of all that, with all that stuff. It was really long, and there was like some aborted song start, like all that stuff from ages ago.
That's why, like I said when we were talking about in the segment before, Pearl Jam and this with Nirvana, it was very personal.
Yeah, definitely.
It was important. It was very important. It was weird to think that.
No, I think you used the right word when you say important, because. Right? This was music that was speaking to... when you're at that age, you can't express or quantify like what is inside of you. It's difficult.
Yeah, it helped with that.
Right, and suddenly here was something that did. And even if you couldn't point to something specific about the music and say, well, this is what it's saying about me, but like it was there, Yeah,
it was like we could joke of it, but it was the first time like you'd be driving down the road blasting it, in a sense that like other people here would be like, yeah, this is how I feel.
Yeah, because you wanted to tell the world. Yeah.
It was like the first time you got to do that.
Yeah,
it's kind of funny.
Now, did you get a chance to see them before? I
never got to see Nirvana live. I got to see Chili Peppers, Pearl Jam, Jane's Addiction, like all those bands. I always tried. Nirvana never. Did you get to see them on the East Coast? Because they were.
Yeah.
Where did you see them? That they came over here?
I saw them at the Armory in Philadelphia.
What year? Like 92?
91? 93, I think.
Ah, so that was like...
This thing was 93. I think 93. I almost... I'm no exaggeration. I almost died at the show.
I was going to say, like, I know their shows were...
What happened was, it was a bigger show than they expected.
Right, of course.
And in the front, they had set up sort of a barricade in front of the stage, right? Which I kind of wasn't used to because I tend to go to small shows.
Yeah.
But they had this barricade set up between the stage and them. And the barricade was maybe...
Yeah, waist high. chest high.
Yeah, like to me, I guess it was about chest high, so I guess it must have been, I don't know, maybe 4 feet, 4.5 feet high, something like that. I'm a short guy. And it was one of these things where it was like, I don't know what it was made of, but then like plywood.
Yeah.
Right? And so I'm literally right at the front.
Yeah, you fought your way up front.
Had to be there. Oh, it had to be there, right up front. And I'm watching it, and I'm in sort of heaven. And they started to play. It wasn't Teen Spirit, but it was something else. It might have been like All
Territorial
or something.
Pissing.
But it was like a bigger song. The crowd started to. Started to move. These wave surges pushing me forward, and I didn't have my arms like on the barrier in a way that sort of keep my rib cage away from it. They got over it.
Ugh.
So it was just the rib cage, the crowd behind me, and my rib cage and the barrier. And so the crowd is literally just compressing my rib cage against it, and I just started to not be able to breathe, and I started to black out, and I just sort of barely remember getting my arm up like this to like someone
try to signal,
because the crowd was like the ocean, in and out. I
remember back then it was fucking crazy.
And they pulled me out of that shit, and I was just sort of in the front of it for a little bit.
Did they pull you out and you had to like walk back around?
Yeah, I had to go to the side and to the back, and I went to the back and I was like, all right, I'm done.
I'm fucking done.
Yeah, I'm actually done. And I got to the back, and then they started playing Teen Spirit in the back, and I was like, man.
That's the thing that and I don't know about like a lot of people listening and stuff, because I feel like a lot of people didn't get used to go to shows, but when we went to Lollapalooza, and other shows back then, you forget the mosh pits.
Oh yeah,
you forget that like if you like, but you would go up forward. You were like, "Are you gonna go up there?" Like I remember going with friends and being like, "Are you gonna go up there?" Because you're gonna get your fucking teeth knocked out, or you're gonna. Be ready. Like, put your shoes on.
Right.
Get your fucking... Like, I remember being at Lollapalooza and my friend being like, double knot your shoes. And I'm like, wait, what? And he's like, double knot your shoes because someone's going to pull your sneakers off. I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, someone's going to eventually pull your sneakers off and just, like, throw them away or whatever. And I'm like, what? Like, the craziness of back then, how it was, like, so insane.
Well, I mean, it's still, like, mosh pits or...
Not like that, though. I refuse to believe it's like the swirling hurricane that used to...
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
Still like that?
Well, see, you don't go to shows like I do anymore.
I don't go anymore.
I still do. No, that is still...
It was in the 90s?
Still totally a thing.
With the stomping?
Absolutely, it's still totally a thing.
I'm a little bit glad.
I will
to hear that that's still going on.
I will bring my wife up and tell you. We had gone seen a couple of years back. We had gone to see Against Me. It was a band we all in the household really like a lot. I think it was like our second or third time seeing them. We went to go see them at the Stone Pony, and I'd warned them ahead of time. I was like, look, we've seen them at other venues before.
Yeah,
at this particular place, like just
stay back.
And but we had brought a friend of ours, a mutual friend, their daughter with us. It was her first concert.
Her first concert.
Push
her right into the front row.
But she had heard them a couple times before, and she seemed interested, and whatever, blah, blah. I don't remember how old she was at the time. 16, 17, something like that, right? And she's tiny. She's even tinier than my wife, who is relatively tiny.
Yeah.
And so we're at this punk rock show, and the pit lights off, and I thought that we were in a spot because I
thought you were safely outside.
Yeah, I know the Pony pretty well. I thought we were in a good spot, but it expanded and it got to that point, and it wasn't just a pit, but it was like the people swinging and all this. And all of a sudden, I find myself I'm trying to like get in between,
right. I'm
between like me and them and the pit, and trying to move them back and all that. And anyway, long story short, the girl who was our good friend's daughter, she's practically family. She was like the best time of my life. Awesome. She didn't care, and she didn't care that she was about to get her ass knocked out and all the rest. And going to shows is awesome, but I don't miss pits at all.
No, I don't. I feel like
I did it a few times, because I saw the Ramones many times in small clubs and stuff like that, and other bands like that. But I don't miss that shit. I'm too old for that, especially.
Yeah, I'm surprised it still goes on.
Oh yeah, totally.
Like I said, I'm kind of glad because I feel like I almost felt like, oh, this generation has no idea like what it was like. But and I know that before us, obviously, it was going on at like punk concerts constantly all the time. But it's kind of good to know that.
Yeah, I don't know that it goes on to that extent in hard rock concerts. Well, rock concerts, hard rock concerts, and metal and punk. That's different. But yeah, totally. So you know what? We're gonna have an epic episode, man.
It deserves it.
Yeah, no, I agree. So we're going to come back to wrap it up, and then if you guys have been enjoying this, you really do need to check out our Patreon shit, because we have so much more music, holy crap, to talk about. Anyway, we'll get to that next segment. We'll be back in a minute. So, holy crap, the thing is, we've been recording for a while now. I feel like it's a lengthy episode. We haven't even touched on this month's music yet.
You can't. It's insane.
It's messed up.
Yeah, but how much can you talk about it? Each segment deserves over an hour.
No, yeah, I agree. I could probably do an hour on each one of these records, no problem. But then that breaks the whole format.
Right.
Breaks the whole format.
And nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to hear two old men waxing nostalgic about.
That's right.
For that long, at least.
Yeah. And the reason why I bring that up is because we're going to relegate the rest of the music of September of 1991 to our bonus episode for Patreon. We're going to be, I think, shorter, with most of this stuff, but that's going to include the Red Hot Chili Peppers' Blood Sugar Sex Magic, the Metallica self-titled record, plus stuff from Blur and PM Dawn and Fresh Prince and Cypress Hill and Naughty by Nature and Spin Doctors and Pixies and Tribe Called Quest and Stuart Driver. Holy crap. All came out this month.
It's
in 91.
It's too much.
Yeah, it's pretty insane. I'm curious what our listeners think, because I think it's pretty evident. I love the music segments.
Oh yeah, of course. That's why there was actually a point where we were discussing actually having bringing Brian and Bootsy on with you, and I think I said to you, like, because you, Bootsy, and Brian have a more technical understanding of music, or I feel like the audience, where it's like, it's music to me, and it's passion. I have passion thing. But you guys, where I would almost sit back and enjoy listening to you guys talk about it from a more of a, what would you say, professional standpoint?
No, certainly not that. But
you and Bootsy play music, so that is a step higher.
Bootsy plays music.
Well, you play music too. Well, you play music. You're in the at least 10 percentile. Bootsy, you know what I mean? Like, where Bootsy has recorded albums, I get it, but so have you. So that's at least in the 95, in the 5 to 10 percentile of the people.
I mean, I guess, I don't know. To me, I always feel bad about anytime we record an episode or a segment where, like, you don't have a lot to say. Because I'm like, well, that's the point, is
the interaction between...
Yeah, I would think that's why no one likes to listen to me ramble.
No,
they wanted to listen to us.
Right, but if you have the knowledge, that's what people want to hear. People want to hear that. If you have that experience, that's what, that's just what people want to hear. People want to hear about things that they don't know about. Sure.
I guess maybe to me, part of it has always been, right, this podcast was launched based on the ground that was tread by Nerd Out With Me.
Right.
Which has tended to have a sort of video game, music, and TV focus.
Right, and movies.
I think that's what I said. Did I not?
No.
Oh, well, then what did I say?
You said TV, music, and video games.
Oh, I meant to say TV, movies, and video games. Not as much music.
But music is when we started the podcast,
right,
which was your idea,
but the
90s which we both grew up in,
Sure.
a huge part of it is music.
Of course. But again, that's my point. My thought was like, all right, but does the Nerd Out With Me fandom, are they as music geeky as, let's say, I am about this
I
stuff?
I think everybody is music geeky. I think the problem,
like to the extent where they want to listen to this, and I guess what I'm saying is I want people to tell us. They've told us before, and this was really surprising to me, but I was glad to hear it. Remember when we talked about news of the day and politics of the day and stuff like that? And I was always kind of sketchy, like, are people going to really care about these segments?
Yeah, but people actually like that.
Yeah, we've gotten really great feedback about those segments, which surprises me.
I think because a lot of people, I don't think a lot of people touch on the politics and music of that time. Everybody hits like TV and movies and video games. You can go to a lot of places for that. But I think because we go to it, it sparks something and people go, oh, I remember that.
Well, see, I'd like to talk about, too, even the music that we didn't necessarily like. Right. But that was in the music that was
popular at the time.
Yeah, the music that represented the era.
Like the Spin Doctors.
That's exactly why they're on the list, man. Oh, yeah.
Little Miss, can't be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, they're not on there because,
but at the time, they were very popular.
Of course, exactly. So, yeah, I do want people to tell us, wherever the hell you tell us stuff. I don't know. Whatever. I want, like, people who are into the music stuff, I want them to tell us about that and let us know if we should keep doing this stuff. And if you are, good news.
Good news, there's a shitload of music that came out.
Oh yeah, holy cow, yeah. So our bonus segment is, oh man, it's probably going to be packed, and then in the months coming up, we have so much more music to talk about.
That's good though, because we can, like we said, we're bringing out some special guests and let them chew off on what they remember about music, blah blah blah.
Yeah, it'll be good shit. So Tig, tell us where they can find us in various places.
They can find us in multiple interneting places like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Google Plus, and YouTube. And if you're looking for some special additional footage, you can find us on Patreon. Nerd Out With Me.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness. My goodness.
That's amazing.
You can watch people eat Eric's peppers.
Peppers?
On Patreon. I mean, let's not. It doesn't get any better than that.
Is that true? All right. Well, hey, fair enough. Hey, I have throughout this entire proceedings, I've been Eric,
and I was Tig for partial time.
Thanks so much, everyone, for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Come back. Oh, I should say this. See, I'm trying to get myself in the habit.
Okay.
Come back next week for a discussion of news from October 1991, which has some pretty interesting stuff, including... I'll give you some hints. Clarence Thomas, Bill Clinton, The Perfect Storm. So some news from October 1981.
The Perfect Storm?
The Perfect Storm, yes. As well as Soundgarden's Bad Motorfinger.
Jesus.
And Ice Cube. Vanilla Ice's Cool as Ice.
Fuck's sake.
Exactly. So, and again, we've already talked about what's coming up in the bonus segment. So come back later. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.
Here's a choice of food and drink to satisfy anyone and everyone. You'll find something to please you to add to your evening's enjoyment. Something to please all tastes and age groups.